The house had always felt quiet, too quiet, a silence that wasn't peaceful, but heavy, like holding your breath. I should have known. I should have felt it the moment we moved in, the unsettling chill that clung to the air in the attic. My name is Emily. This is the story of how a harmless antique, a gift from a well-meaning relative, slowly, meticulously, turned our dream home into a living nightmare. Part 1. The unsettling gift. It started when my Aunt Carol brought over a housewarming gift, an antique dollhouse. It was beautiful, a miniature Victorian mansion, intricately detailed, with tiny furniture and even tinier, exquisitely dressed porcelain dolls. She'd found it at a vintage market. "For your daughter, Lily," she'd said. "A real heirloom." Lily, being 6, was enchanted. We placed it in her playroom, near the window. The first oddity was subtle. Lily complained the dolls moved. "Mama, the little girl doll is sitting on the bed now, but I left her at the table." I'd dismiss it, blaming her imagination or my own forgetfulness. Kids play, dolls get moved. It was harmless. Then came the whispers. Faint at first. A rustling, a tiny giggle, sometimes a mournful sigh. Always from the playroom. I check, find nothing, blame the old house settling, or the wind. But the whispers grew clearer. I'd hear tiny, distinct voices, sometimes calling Lily's name, sometimes just a general murmuring, like a tea party in miniature. One evening, I walked past the playroom door, and I heard it distinctly. A tiny, high-pitched voice, singing an old lullaby. A lullaby I used to sing to Lily. The dolls were singing. I opened the door. Silence. The dolls sat perfectly still, frozen in their poses. But a single tiny window in the dollhouse, one I swore was closed, was now slightly ajar. Suspense line. It wasn't just dolls moving anymore. It was an intelligence, an imitation, learning our most intimate secrets. Part 2. The parallel life. The dollhouse became an eerie mirror. If Lily had a bad day at school, the tiny doll representing her would be found face down on the dollhouse bed. If she fell and scraped her knee, the doll would have a minuscule, red mark on its porcelain knee. It was beyond coincidence. It was knowing. My husband, Ben, a staunch skeptic, would laugh it off. It's a phase. Kids project onto their toys. But even his composure began to crack when the incidents escalated. One night, the smoke detector blared. Ben rushed downstairs, expecting a fire. Nothing. The alarm was still blaring, but coming not from the ceiling, but from the dollhouse. A miniature smoke detector, barely an inch long, within the dollhouse kitchen, was flashing and beeping furiously. It stopped the moment Ben stared at it. Lily started having night terrors. She'd wake up screaming, pointing at the dark corner of her room. "The little girl doll is looking at me." We moved the dollhouse into the attic, hoping distance would break its hold. It didn't. Suspense line. We thought moving it would stop it. We were wrong. It just gained more control. The dollhouse grew bolder in the attic. We'd hear tiny, heavy thuds above us at night. Footsteps. Sometimes the distinct sound of miniature furniture being dragged across miniature floors. It was no longer subtle. It was actively making its presence known. One morning, I went to the attic to retrieve some old photos. The dollhouse sat there, imposing. I noticed a tiny, intricately carved wooden figure, a man, lying on the dollhouse floor. His face was identical to Ben's, down to the small scar above his eyebrow. And it was broken. One leg snapped clean off. That evening, Ben slipped on the stairs and broke his leg, precisely mirroring the doll. Part 3. The invitation we knew then. This wasn't just a haunted dollhouse. It was a conduit, a vessel. Something was replicating our lives within its tiny walls, and it was drawing energy, feeding on fear, and slowly replacing us. Lily began spending more time in the attic alone. I'd find her whispering to the dollhouse, moving the dolls, acting out scenarios that mimicked our family life, but with a sinister twist. The dolls would argue, then one would fall, shattering into tiny pieces. Lily would giggle. Her eyes, usually bright, now held a disturbing, distant look. Ben's skepticism had vanished, replaced by a cold terror. He tried to destroy the dollhouse. He took a hammer to it, but the wood wouldn't splinter. The porcelain dolls, when thrown against the wall, simply bounced back unharmed. He even tried to burn it, but the flames recoiled, leaving the miniature mansion untouched. Suspense line, it wasn't just unyielding. It was actively resisting, protecting its occupants. Then came the invitation. We found it one morning, slid under the playroom door. A tiny, folded piece of parchment, tied with a minuscule red ribbon. Inside, written in Lily's handwriting, yet somehow not her handwriting. The loops too perfect, the pressure too even. It read, "Come play with us. There's room for one more. Forever." And beside the message, a new doll. A perfect, blank-faced porcelain doll, dressed in a tiny replica of my favorite blue dress. It was waiting for me. We packed what we could and left that day, never looking back. We never sold the house. It stands empty now, a monument to a terror too profound to comprehend. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if the dollhouse still sits in the attic. If the tiny voices still whisper. And if the dolls, endlessly replaying our lives, are still waiting for me to come back and take my place. The empty space in the dollhouse, the doll waiting for me, it still calls.